Okay, so when you first tune your dulcimer, and this you only have to really do it once, but you start out by figuring out where the tuning pegs are for each bridge. So if I start over here on my bass bridge, I can follow this string over here and see that my tuning pegs are on this side. So for my bass bridge, the tuning pegs are going to be on the right hand side. They come up, the string will come up over the peg and wrap around it clockwise. And both of those strings are the same. They come up over the peg and around clockwise. So if I follow that same string, you're going to come through that little hole and follow it all the way to this end, and there's my little pin. And on this particular instrument, the string, this note, this low D, is one string. It just wraps around this pin, and not all instruments are like that. A lot of them will have a loop end, and it just hooks onto another pin. So this one's a little bit different. So if your instrument's like that, you just make note of it. Now, on the middle bridge, the center bridge, if I follow this string down through that hole, the pin's over on this side, which means that here's the same string, the tuning pegs are over on this side. And notice on this side, they come down underneath, and they still wrap around clockwise. So if they were to come over, they'd go counterclockwise, but they're still going the same way. So that means that regardless of whether we're tuning on the right hand for our bass bridge or the left side for our center bridge, the direction that we turn our tuning wrench is going to be the same. So to get started, I've got my tuner set up, I've got my tuning wrench, and I'm going to start with this note down here. This is a D, and I've already tuned this entire instrument over once last night, and it was so out of tune that it needs to be tuned again. So if your instrument is substantially out of tune, you're probably going to have to go over it 2 or 3 times. But if it's not substantially out of tune, if it's just a few cents one way or the other, then you probably only need to just, go over it real quickly one time. So anyways, this note should be a D, and it's reading flat. So if a note is flat, that means that you need to raise the pitch in order to get it in tune. If it's sharp, you need to lower the pitch, but in this case it's flat, so in order to raise the pitch, I want to tighten this string. Now remember how I noticed that the string goes up and over the peg and then around clockwise? So in order to tighten the string, what I would need to do is turn the wrench clockwise. And now it's in tune. So I can go ahead and move on to the next string. Now once I've tuned one string, the next string, I'm looking at the tuner a little bit, but I'm really listening, because it's not so much about matching it up with the tuner, it's about getting these two strings to sound good together. Now it doesn't sound right. It's too high. You can hear the difference, and you want to be listening. When it's so close, you hardly want to do anything. You're just kind of tapping. You're just tapping a little bit on this. And then oftentimes I'll actually hit it with a hammer, because hitting it with a hammer, you're going to get the two exactly at the same time, and you can really hear if it's right or wrong. It sounds good. There are all sorts of varying opinions on what order you should tune your strings in. Because this dulcimer it's substantially out of tune, but it's not you know, we're not talking whole steps or anything like that. It's just a bit flat. I'm going to tune in major arpeggios. This is kind of how I like to tune. So it helps you learn your arpeggios. It helps you learn your chords throughout the instrument, which I think is great. And it also prevents you from tuning all in one place and then all in one place, you know, so you don't start all down here and just go straight up and then wind up all the way up here. And, you know, because that, it kind of changes the pressure of all the strings across the instrument. So I like to tune sort of sporadically all over the instrument, and I find that tuning in major arpeggios helps. So I tuned this D. It's changed a little already, hasn't it? I'll come back to it later. So the D major arpeggio on the dulcimer, even if you don't know the note names yet, is going to be 1, 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's your 8. 1, 3, 5, 8. That sounds like junk right now, but essentially those are the strings that I'm going to start. So here's 1. I already did that. 3. Alright, so this is a tiny bit sharp. Now it's a little bit flat. Again, I'm just... There we go. It's good enough for now. I'm going to skip up here. When I'm tuning this second string, I'm really listening. And it might not be registering perfectly on there, but it sounds, this sounds right to me. And it's pretty much, if it's kind of swaying back and forth, then you're probably okay. I'm gonna come over here. So we just know now, after looking at that, we're D, F sharp, A. Those are the notes in our G major arpeggio. And this should be a D, right? If you don't know the note names on your instrument, hopefully you got a tuning chart with your instrument. But if you didn't, you can find, if your instrument is standard tuned, then it should be, it should at least follow similarly to a standard tune layout, if it's standard tuned. So I've got D, F sharp, A, D. I don't have another F sharp on the bass bridge, but I do have another A, and my tuning wrenches, my tuner's on it, but I do have another A, which is all the way up here. like to always check just by playing those arpeggios, and if something sounds off to me, then I'll kind of go back to it and take a look at that specific section. So now I'm going to move on to the D major arpeggio on the treble bridge.